Okay, we're in the Sage projects document, and this is about using Sage with your courses at Essex County College, specifically those courses that are leading towards a STEM-related major, and that's 119, 120, 121, and 122. Now, my recommendation to you is to work through all the projects beginning at 119 forward. I realize that some students may not be doing that. They may be on to a particular section. For example, if they're in Math 122, they may be on directly to Math 122. These documents, when you see a little box around something, it means it's linkable. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Project A, and this is Math 122. This is the first project. I'm not going to keep doing this for each project, but I'll kind of read through the initial part. My recommendation to you is you should seriously read before you attempt to do anything. Now, what happens to a lot of students is what they do is they don't want to read. All they want to do is the minimal amount of work, which is your teacher was asking you, retype the code. You might just simply scroll through this and say, oh, you know what? I'll just retype this code and call it a day. You'll really learn nothing by doing that. So let me go back to the beginning. As those are instructions, retype the Sage code. Again, people think that's what they got to do. No, what you have to do is realize that you're trying to learn something, not just retype. All right? Now, it's on this page over here you're going to retype, and they want you to save it as a Jupyter notebook. The assumption at this point is you have Sage installed in your computer. So what I want to do is I want to launch Sage. I'm going to go to the Finder. I'm going to go to my Applications folder, and I'm going to launch Sage. There's two ways on my computer at this stage. I should say Sage is offering two ways to use Sage on my computer. One is by a command line, which is my favorite, another by a Jupyter notebook. I want to claim, though, that you would have to know that this folder here is not on your computer yet. You'd have to install it. So what I mean by that, maybe I shouldn't say install it, create it. And so it's like, you already have a Jupyter server running. Bottom line is I run this a lot. What I want to claim, though, is in your Documents folder, let me do this over here, you would have a folder called Jupyter. Now, granted, you may not have that folder. You'd have to create the folder, new folder, Jupyter. I recommend you do that, all right? Now, I have it. I've already selected it. I'm going to launch it. Now, if your teacher's asking you to submit these things, what I would say is create a new one. So I'm going to create a Sage 9.4 notebook. And what I'd like to do is rename it. And I'm going to rename it to something. Something today. All right. Let me get rid of the space there. Rename. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, retype. And so what are you going to retype? I'm going to retype the code they're giving me. Now, again, I'm doing what you shouldn't be doing, which is avoiding the reading part. We'll get back to that later, by the way. But I'm going to type this in, reset. Now, if you hit the Enter button, nothing's going to happen, right? Nothing really happened. Something did happen. A return happened. Shift, that means you're hitting the Shift button and the return at the same time. Now, you notice the in now has a number on it, in1. It's reset. Now, what I want to do is x equals var. Whoops. And I want to make x a variable. Again, Shift, return. Now, you notice a little inside this box over here, there's no number here. Once I hit Shift, return, I'll see a 2 there. All right? Second thing. Next thing I want to do is do something that I don't recommend you do offhand, but copy paste. So copy paste that, Shift, return. And that's the third thing. Now, what I want to do is I want to, copy paste this. I want to warn you against this, though. What happens to a lot of students is they copy paste, they make mistakes. So I want to type this in, and I'm going to go through a few different things. NUM, and let's say I can't remember. Hit the Tab button, and what happens when I hit the Tab button? I'll see a bunch of different commands I could want, and I'm going to do numerical integral. And then I'm going to enter it. What do I want to do? F of x and comma. And let's see, I want to go 2 to 12. and I want to do maximum number of points. I'm just retyping code, by the way, is equal to 100. All right. Now, again, if you hit enter, nothing's going to happen. Let me back up. I need to hit shift return. And what happens, I made a mistake somewhere. Now, I'm glad I made a mistake because I have to be honest with you, if I make a mistake, I have to figure out what the mistake is, but it's pointing it at right here, right? So I'm going to hit the up arrow, and I'm back to this command over here. And it's this thing. I made a mistake. It's an underscore. Shift return. Right, I'm getting the number. All right, what am I getting over there? An approximation. And I believe this thing over here is something about the error in it. All right. The next thing I want to do, I'll do a copy paste now. And we'll talk through it. This is going to be a Riemann sum. Go back to my, I'm going to paste that in. Shift return. And it gives me the response. Now someone says, what did it do? It computed, it's I equals 0, I equals 1, blah, 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 up to 999, this computation over here. And it has this number. Now, what I would recommend to do is you could play around with this now by changing these numbers. For example, let's say you want to go to 1,000, right? Let me do that. And you get the idea what I'm doing over here, right? And let's see what I'm going to do over here. Let me see, 1 over 1,000, sum. You know, I got to carefully look at my code now, and I'm wondering if I made a mistake somewhere. I'm going to go back over this. And let me see if I type that in. I'm looking back over my code, by the way. I did the integration. I got the number. Again, I'm not reading. Oh, you know what? I realized I was doing different endpoints. So that's what I'm talking about over here. I was doing a different endpoint. Let me just go back over here, not change it to 1,000, but I'm going to do the, that was the left endpoint. I'm going to do the right endpoint, which means I'm going to start at 1, and I'm going to go to 1,000 now. Sorry about that. Hit return, and what do I get to get a number? You know, am I getting the same number getting here? No, but I'll be honest with you, there's more precision over here. But within reason, you know, I'm getting, what I want to point out that I'm getting to 6826, 689. But you notice this is giving me more digits over here, all right? Now, again, when I did this project over here, I was using a TI-89. All right, let me go back to my code. And again, we're just retyping. And I want to do this one over here. Oh, it's already done. So I got it all done. Let me see if I did everything I need to do. I think you could type the rest in if you like. Okay, let's go back to, you know, let's say your teacher's objective here was to get you to retype the code and submit it. So what I want to do, I want to go back to my Sage notebook over here. Now someone says, where's this thing running? It's actually running on my computer, but the interface to it is the web-based. So what I'm going to do is hit the Save button. All right. Now what did I save? I saved the document something today. So what I want to do is I want to go to the Finder, and I'm going to search for that file, something today. And it comes up right away. Now you notice it's got an extension on it. And what's the extension on it? Well, it's a Jupyter Notebook. Now let's say my objective here was just to retype the code, which I have not done. I've done part of it, and to mail it to somebody. I would just drag this file to my mail program. It's right over here. My mail program will open up, and that file will be attached to it. Now granted, I'm not going to mail it out, but let's say we're going to mail it to me. My email address is b@nnon.us, and you can mail that. Now again, I'm not saying you're going to mail this to somebody, but you know what? If you were, that document could be shared now. All right. So let me not share it. I don't want to share that. I'm gonna not save it either. Don't save. And what I want to do is just briefly talk about that I don't like using Jupyter Notebooks. So I'm going to close this out. And what I want to do is I want to go back to this thing over here and talk about another way to run Sage. Now, Sage is running on my computer, but if I go to my dock and I see the icon Sage, remember we went to the Finder before to launch it, and I click on this, it's going to give me the option now to do a command line. Let me do that for you. And I want to point out, I just want to retype the code in, reset, and there's a difference now. I don't have to hit shift return, I just hit return, right? Return now. X is var. And what I want to do is, and again, I've already typed this stuff in. That's why I'm just doing a copy paste. And again, students often will do copy paste too. All right, I get a result there. Copy paste this one over here. You get the idea what I'm doing. At least I hope you do. I did that. Get a number. Copy paste this. Return. I get a number. I think you get the idea what I'm doing. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. I want to warn you against copy, paste, though. And the deal about this over here, if I were to copy this command, I'm also copying the line number, and I don't want to do that. So let me go through this with you briefly. And then it says in, right? In what? 1, ... 1000, return. And I get the number. You get the idea. Be careful of copy paste. I want to point out one other copy paste often students do is they'll do this copy paste over here, and I want to show you what happens. It says there's an error, and it's pointing at the error, by the way. It's invalid character. So I'm going to hit the up arrow, just like I did in the Jupyter notebook, and what I can do is I can change those to the proper command, a proper character, I mean. So I'm going to get rid of that. I want to show you there's a difference now. I hope you can see the difference in the quote marks. And that would be acceptable now. Let me clear. All right. And I think I've covered what you need to do. You need to retype the code. However, retyping the code is almost pointless. It's like you get a job and they want you to retype documents. How humiliating. All right. So what's the point? The point is you're expected to read this material. So this is a project that I normally give my students in Math 122 to use a computer algebra system. And so, I'm going to say that when I was, first started this, I would use the TI-89, which is a great calculator, by the way, but it's sort of like a dinosaur technology. It's really old-fashioned at this point. But anyway, I did it on my TI-89. I get this number over here. On my TI-89, I've also did this computation over here. But the bottom line is, you might say, oh, gee, the TI-89 can do it. Yeah, it can do it. And so can Sage can do it. So someone says, what's this over here? It's a left endpoint, and we did that computation. You would have to know that, and that's something that's taught in Math 121 as well. That's left endpoint, and when I'm talking about this thing over here, then I have to do the right endpoint. That's this thing over here. You'd have to know how to type that up, by the way. I also did midpoint rule. That's right over here, midpoint rule. And again, that's something that's taught in Math 121 and in Math 122. Trapezoid rule is taught in 122, not in 121. So I do that over here. I type it up for you, right? Simpson's rule. That's also taught in 122, but not in 121. And I go through that, all right? Again, your expectation is to make sense out of that, is to study your Math 122 material and see how this relates to it. By the way, if you're using my notes in 122, you'll see this exact same question there, all right? Thank you for paying attention, though. I appreciate your time and your efforts.